Welcome back to Count Me In. I'm your host, Adam Larson, and for our final episode of 2025, I'm thrilled to be joined by Ting Song, Executive Director at JPMorgan Chase Co. With the holiday season upon us, this conversation couldn't come at a better time. For many of us, it's a chance to rest, recharge, and reflect before heading into a brand new year. In today's episode, Ting and I dive deep into the realities of burnout, what it really means, and how to spot it before it spirals, and why it's not more than just everyday stress. Drawing from her experience in leadership and her own personal journey, Ting shares practical advice on building healthier habits, recognizing the early warning signs, and making room for play and relaxation during the busiest times. So if you're feeling stretched thin at the end of the year or simply want to start 2026 with more energy and renewed focus, this episode is packed with tips and strategies to support yourself and your team. So take a moment and pause with us, and let's wrap up the year by investing in your well-being. Let's get started. Well, Ting, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I'm very excited to be talking about burnout. And I think what we could start with is maybe a little bit about your story. What kind of drew you to focus on burnout as a topic?
I'm very passionate about this topic. I experience myself, and I have friends and colleagues and everybody I've seen. They experience this so much these days. So that's, I think it's so important for me to talk about it because I want people to be aware of it. It's happening. It's happening around almost every single people these days.
So have you experienced it personally?
hmm
And what was that like?
It's not great, because, I never experienced when I first started my career. It was, I think I can get everything done. I'm the hard worker. I had good grades in school. So I never thought it will be something, I would experience in my life. But then later on, after years and years of working, I started to realize I can't work the same way I was working when I was younger. My energy level is just not there. And, I can't do this years and after years. And then that's when I started to realize maybe there's something wrong. So I start to ask people, I go to different retreats. I do yoga personally. So I do different things and just try to explore, what's going on because I'm just tired all the time. And then when I start to go to a yoga retreat, that's when I start to learn about, that's probably is burnout. And then I started to see some therapists, which really helped me to understand, this is something it's very common these days because people work so much. And that's when I decided, okay, I need to make a change because I think the first thing is to be aware what's going on. Once you're aware, and then you had to work to make a change. So that's why I think it's very important. And then because I have achieved so much improvements in my own, well-being. So that's why I think I should share this with other people. So people can learn from me or just learn from whatever else out there.
So what you're describing can some would describe as maybe everyday stress. So maybe we can take a step back and define like burnout in contrast to maybe everyday stress and maybe what are some key differences that people should be looking for.
I think stress is more temporary, it's short term. It's always your reaction to a certain scenario, but burnout is more long term. So I think one thing is that if you don't manage stress very well or you don't manage it at all, it will eventually turn into burnout. And then that at that time it's very difficult to reverse back. Then you'll be experience a long term burning out period, and it's really, really, it will take a lot of work in order for you to reverse. And then that's why I think it's very important for you to discover the signs of stress. And then you can, start to manage the stress and before it actually turn into a burnout situation. Yeah. I think some symptoms you can see from stress, I think it's very important that you're aware of these when it starts. Symptoms such as have trouble sleeping. I think that's a big one. Uh, if you are the person who are typically very healthy, you don't get sick that often, and all of a sudden you get sick, every month. And then that's something, you can see is probably because of stress or even burnout. Some other symptom is like, okay, if you when there's a scenario, when there's a situation you face and you breathe very fast, or you have heartbeat, like fast heartbeats, or you just start to forget about things. And people always think, oh, because we're getting old, that's why I start to forget about things. But Actually, that's not true. A lot of time it's because of stress, you start to forget about things. So those are small signs I think you can manage on a daily basis. And if it happens to you, you can just start to, take a pause and think, okay, I need to take a break because I'm stressed. Because you have to know, like, when you are stressed. If you know when you're stressed, you can stop. I think that's very important.
Hmm. Yeah. So you have to kind of recognize stress because what you're saying is stress kind of turns into burnout.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, so it turns into a burnout if you don't manage. And it's always after, it's not like one day, overnight, stress will turn into a burnout. It always takes years and years. And people only start to be aware of that after it turns out to be a burnout. And at that time, you just feel like you can't even go back to work anymore. Or you take, if you take a vacation, you take a week and you come back, you still feel tired. That means you're burned out. Yeah, but then people only realize that, when you are actually burned out. And I think one thing also I feel like I always tell people is that I feel like everybody needs a therapist. No matter, no matter you feel great or not feeling great, I think it's very important. This is just like a workout, you go to the gym because you want to be healthy. So you go to the therapist so you can stay mentally healthy. So it's almost the same thing. There's nothing to be scared about it or shame about it. These days, I think it's very common, especially, in today's world with all these crazy things happening. It's just very common that we have some sort of stress, and seeing a therapist and having a therapist that fits your style, it's always very important.
Cool. I like those. I mean, those are some good practical advice. Do you have any, maybe some real world examples of burnout that you can share that you've seen, maybe experienced? I mean, I know that I've been very close to burnout a number of times in my life, and it took a while to get out of that. And then maybe we can talk a little bit about some of the experiences we've seen and kind of help share people connect to this.
Yeah, I mean, I have friends, like I worked with or people I know in the past. You know, they are so there's a one example, like I have a friend, one day, I think there's no reason all of a sudden, he couldn't move his thumb anymore. And he has to go to the hospital. And then it's just hard to diagnose any reasons because when you are burnout, some sort of your body, like physically, there's probably some reactions, but you couldn't be diagnosed. And then that's usually caused by either stress or burnout or some other emotional or mental issues. But because you can't have diagnosed, so it's not physical. But but if you don't treat it, then it become physical from a mental, which you can't diagnose, and then become a physical, which you're able to diagnose. So that's why things, that's how people get sick. Most sickness is coming from something mental and then transition because we don't treat it. And then they transition into something physical. And if we don't even treat it at that point, it transitions to something even more serious physically. And so that's how it usually works. Doctors can treat the patient. They can treat the symptoms and they can treat the physical problems, but they cannot treat the mental problem. And then who can treat the mental problem is ourselves. Like we're the only one that can control ourselves. I work with so many people. They're trying to control every single thing that's happening. But I think people need to be realize that you can only control yourself. Apart from yourself, you cannot control anything. And then because you are trying to control the things you cannot control, and that's why you're so stressed. I mean, it's one of the cause of stress. It's not every, it's there's other causes of stress as well. But this is one of the common causes that you're trying to control everything at work or your life because you think it should happen a certain way. So it's more about changing your mindset, how you perceive,
Hmm.
what's going on. And, everything has two sides. There's always a positive side as well as a negative side. And they just how you see it. And then once you can see it in the positive side, you will not feeling any burnout or stress or depression. And, always like stress, anxiety, depression, burnout, these all come together. It doesn't just come one, it doesn't just like, oh, it's just stress. No, there's always some other things come together. It's all these, negative emotions that you're dealing with.
So, what would you say to like the skeptic who's like, "Well, that sounds great. I'll just change my thoughts and everything will be fine." That's it sounds too good to be true. And so maybe we can talk a little bit about like, some tangible things because it's more than just like, "Hey, I'm going to change my thoughts and now my thoughts are good, so I'm all better now." And that's not really how it works.
Yeah, I agree. It takes practice, it's a habit change. It
Mhm.
typically says it takes 21 days change a habit if you do it every single day. So it's not something you can change overnight, but I think step one is always be the awareness. The first,
Mhm.
you have to be aware, the moments that cause you stress, under what situations. It could be, oh, because the time is not enough. So your stress is coming from limitation of a time. Or it could be the volume, or the volume work is too high. So that's the cause of stress. Or it could be the environment, the people you work with who are not the best people, or they're not the most relaxed people or positive people to work with. So I think it's very important to identify what is the cause of the
Mhm.
stress. Once you can identify, you have to practice moment by moment, which means, it's a mental habit. So it comes and goes. And then the more you allow it, it comes more. Probably during the day, some days you probably more stressed than other days. Sometimes it's because you didn't sleep well, because you didn't eat well. Physical and mental health is always go hand in hand. So if you're eating well, you usually have a more clear mind. So certain days you're just more moody and other things happen in your life. So that day you probably have more stress. And then you need to notice that when it's happening, and then identify like moment by moment. Or once the thoughts come to you, and that's when you have to start to tell yourself, okay, this is not right.
Mhm.
Start small. You start from very small, and then you implement again and again, and repeat again and again, and they always going back and forth. A lot of times, we think things are black and white. Either it's you are good or not good. But in the real world, it's always in between. It's in the gray area. So when you change
Yeah.
your habit, it always go back and forth before, between good and bad, good and bad. And then you can start to notice, if you work hard on your habits, you're changing the habits, you start to notice the frequency of good, it become more and more. So it's actually slowly shifting in a different direction. So that's when you start to notice the change.
Mhm.
But there's always days that are gonna coming back. It's gonna come back to exactly where you start. You need to not be discouraged. You're still doing well. Although it seems you go back to the same place, but it is not exactly the same place.
Mhm.
Like a shape of a sparrow. It's always like this and this. It's going into the same direction, the direction you're working towards.
I like that, because I think a lot of times people will kind of hear you say, change your mindset, change your thought patterns, and not really recognizing, like, hey, it's a process. It takes time to kind of undo habits that have caused stress in your life. And you have to undo those habits in order to get to a place where that's not happening anymore. And that takes time because you can't always just change everything that you're doing at work on the drop of a hat. You can't always put boundaries around things that are causing you stress. Those things you have to balance it, and it looks different for each person. And I think a lot of times people try to fit everything in one cookie cutter thing, and every person's journey is different, and what works for you may not work for me, and I have to
Yeah.
find what works for me in order to make that work.
Yeah, exactly. You can't check the boxes because it's different for everybody and different
Hmm.
scenario for even one person every day. So that you have to really set aside energy or, just time to manage, those process. Like, oh, if you determine, okay, I'm going to start to change my habits. So every day you have to designate a certain amount of time and energy to work on that habits, and day by day, and that's, you're gonna make some progress. It's not going to be, okay, I give you a prescription and you take it every day, it's gonna work. It's not like that. You had to make shift. you know Today you work on different things, and tomorrow you change direction. You notice the change in yourself, and then you change your strategy according to what you change in your body. So it change every day, so it had to put enough energy in doing this. Like, I would say, like,
Okay.
managing the process. It's not just, like, going through the process.
Yeah. So we've talked a little bit about this, but I wanted to maybe really focus on, are there early warning signs of burnout that you've seen that people should like that they sometimes miss or ignore that they should be looking out for if they're saying, "Am I almost in burnout? Am I in burnout?"
Yeah, I think some signs, for example, if you have trouble sleeping, sleeping is a very important thing. I think you should at least sleep between 7 to 8 hours. And
Yeah.
I think study shows women needs more sleep than men, typically by 1 hour more. But it varies. Everybody's different. So I can't really say, okay, you had to sleep how many hours a day. But if you ever feel like you have trouble fall asleep, and it become more consistent, like, it's not just one day or it's always, then that's an early sign. One of the biggest cause of loss of sleep is actually mental. It's not, yeah, a lot of people think, it's because of other things, but it's actually because you think too much.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then that's why usually sleep is one of the very early sign of your stressed or your burnout. And then some other people, they might experience, for example, they dramatically put on weight or lost weight because their appetite changes because of the stress. It is something gonna affect your body, physically, or you can't eat well, or you don't want to eat, or you just don't. Sometimes I think another example is that you don't feel whatever you do, you don't feel like you're interested in doing that anymore. Yeah, it happens. If you lost interest on the things you always interested in, I think it is a sign you need to look at it. Why it happened?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think some other signs, like for example, you forget about things. I always had a good memory until one point I realized, okay, I have to have a calendar for me to remember everything. But before it wasn't like that because I start to be stressed and burning out. I start to forget about things. I think that's a very big sign as well. I think other signs, stress gonna it impact your personal life. If you start to think, you start to realize the people around you probably is all stressed, or you start to be more connected with people that's experience, like burnout or stress. That's because you're actually burnout and stressed.
Hmm.
Sometimes you have to put yourself in the environment of people who are happy or positive because energy pass on. Stress pass on the other way around, positive energy pass around as well. I always I actually took a workshop, I think a while ago. They talk about play. Kids like to play. That's why they're so happy.
Yeah.
Adults, us, we don't play. That's why, we're always stressed and we're not happy about our life. But if we treat every single thing in our life as play a game, even if you've been through exactly the same thing, uh, you might be much happier than, just just treating it as a task or something you have to finish.
And that's probably why there's been the rise of adult learning, the gamification of elements and the gamification of things that are dealing with adults because we're all so stressed and we're all doing tasks all the time. Making something gamified helps us learn it and helps us get out of that monotony of trying to learn new things.
Yeah. And then when you play games, you're so competitive and you want to win and you never feel like you're tired or stressed, but you're putting the best energy and the best mind out there to win the game.
Yeah, I like that. So
Yeah.
we talked about like changing habits and some things we can do to kind of help avoid the stresses that caused burnout. But,
Hmm.
are there challenges that like what are some of the biggest challenges that people face when they're trying to recover from burnout that you've seen?
My personal, sorry, you are a little bit cut off. Could you repeat the question again?
No problem. Sorry. Yeah, that's okay.
Yes. Maybe it's my internet. I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's okay.
Yeah. Sometimes it happens. It's too hot outside. So the network is burning out as well.
Jeez. Yeah, it's funny over here in New York. It's like it's only like not even 60 degrees Fahrenheit today. That it was a cool. It's a cool day. It's really weird.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. What was I saying? Oh, I know. Okay. Yeah. So we talked a bit about some actionable strategies, some things that people can do to kind of get out of burnout to kind of help reduce some of the stresses that take hold that cause the burnout. But from your experience, what are some of the biggest challenges that people face when trying to recover from burnout or even admit that they're burned out? Because I'm sure that's a problem too, that people don't want to admit, hey, I actually have a problem.
Yeah, exactly. I think most people, the biggest of challenge for people is because they are not aware of they're stressed. They're not aware of they're burning out. They're just keep going. Because if you're in a moment of doing something, you don't think too much. You just think, oh, I need to get it done. I need to get it done. You do it day by day. You don't realize there's a shift, then, a mental shift. So I think the most important thing at first is to be aware that this is happening and this is common. You have to admit it. And then you can start to allocate time and energy to manage it.
Yeah.
And it's not easy. I mean, uh, because everybody, is burning out, everybody's stressed, and then working in the environment of everybody's burnout and stress, it's not easy if you want to recover from that. So you do have to have a game plan. A game plan that, requires time, energy. And I always tell people have a therapist or coach just to be able to help you through the process. You need to get you need to get one that fits your style. Not every professional, not every therapist works. It fits your style. So you have to find somebody that fits your style. And then you have the tool. You have to have the tool, the time and energy and the determination.
Mm,
But I think it's really important that you have the time because if you work 80 hours a week, 100 hours a week, it's really hard. The rest of the time you have, I'm pretty sure you'll just sleep or eat or do whatever is needed to do. Then so the first thing you need to look at if you have enough time. It doesn't have to be a long period of time, but it has to be often, like the frequency.
hmm
Set alarm to yourself, for example, like a couple times a day. Every time you have a 5 minutes break, it's not a long time, but you can step outside, just 5 minutes if you can, or just go to the bathroom or drink some water, just walk around a little bit. And I think that's very helpful. So you do have to set aside the time and change the habit. I always feel like in order to combat, in order to fight with what's the best word? In order to manage the negative energy, like negative thoughts like stress and depression, anxiety, you would do something totally opposite, such as play, have fun, have a hobby, just spend time with somebody that you like. You have to really play and have fun. I think that's very important. Relax is good, but the best thing is having fun.
Yeah.
Having fun, yeah. It's
I
like,
like
oh,
that.
yeah, if
Go
you
ahead.
do like negative, you need to do positive. And having fun is
hmm
positive. Relax can make it better, but then you really need to be having fun.
Yeah, I really like that. I like that attitude and remembering that it's okay to play, remember it's okay to have fun, it's okay to laugh, it's okay to kind of get out of our heads. And so in that vein,
Mm.
are there like when we think about organizations and leaders, and I'm sure there's people listening to this thinking, are people in my team burnt out? Are there ways that we can better support our team members in our teams to help reduce burnout risk? And sometimes we're in high pressure environments and there's a lot of stress in high pressure environments. And we all know we've established that high stress and long term stress leads to burnout. So, how can organizations help support their teams better?
I think you need to start from yourself first. Yeah, because you can't change other people without
hmm
changing yourself. So you change yourself first. If you can be a happy person, relaxed person, and that can slowly maybe impact with the people you work with. Maybe they just not aware or they never have the tools and are told or educated, or facilitated or just they never really learn about how to manage this. So it's not like they don't want to do it. It's more about they might not know how to do it. So once you can show them as example, and then you can slowly impact them and maybe even teach them about it. And they can start to learn and do themselves. It's like the energy pass around. If you have two people you might be able to impact 4 people. And then you have 4 people, you can might be impact more. But it is not easy, there's always organization culture. So if you're not in the position of changing the culture, you might not be able to change, you know,
Mhm.
everything, but you can at least change yourself. And I think it's very important. The more you change yourself, you can show other people as example. It's also a boundary settings. You need to set a boundary for to protect your energy, right? So sometimes maybe you're the only person that you're happy, but not everybody else is happy, but you have to really stay in that environment because it's your work or something. So you do need to set your boundaries somehow so that you don't get impacted by them either. So it is like a process. You might need to work on yourself and then slowly impact other people. But meanwhile, you should not be impacted by other people if they have a negative energy. And that's why it will always take time, energy to manage and monitor. And trust me, good things happen when you're happy. Or good things happen, when you're really working on yourself and trying to impact other people. The universe, they have an energy they can pass
Mhm.
around. You always notice, I don't know, people always, there's a saying like, oh, when something going wrong, there's always something else going wrong, right? It's always chain of reaction.
Mhm.
It's the same theory. When you're having something good happen, it's another good things always happen at the same time. It's always a chain of reaction. So sometimes you don't know how you can change it, but at least you can start from yourself
Mhm.
and then you can slowly impact other people and then maybe good things will happen. There are going to be more people impacted. Yeah, so it is a process. And that's why I think it's always about, understand yourself, understand your boundaries, understand what make you stress, what make you relax, what is more important for you. If this is not a right environment, for example, if you're working under a toxic environment, then you might need to leave. So you have to make the best judgment. What is what is right, what is wrong, right? People, if this is not a good environment, everybody knows about it. There's gonna be something happening soon. Trust me. Yeah, because that's just how things usually work. I think there's always I was in this workshop and it's talk about when you have a high in your life, you might
Mhm.
next experience a low. And then when you have a low, the next moment you might experience a high. So it's always going up and down,
Mhm.
just how you
Yeah, there's always
experience.
balance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're always a balance. Yeah.
So when I'm thinking about burnout and I think about organizations, a lot of times there's like this tension between, personal mental health, self-care kind of stuff, and career progression. Because if you look at society, a lot of times the people who work those 120-hour weeks and, slept in the office and built these beautiful billion-dollar businesses, and you think, and you look at what they did to build that, and I'm like, I don't know that I want to do all that so I can build a billion-dollar business because I want to actually sleep and enjoy life. And so, there's this tension. Is there a way to balance your ambition with self-care?
I think it's a choice.
Okay.
If I mean, if you a lot of people, successful people, they're not happy about their life. But there's also people, they work very, very hard, a short period of their time, and then they're using the rest of their life to fix the problem that was generated from that short period of time.
Mm.
So it's about, do you want a long-term success or do you want a short-term success? If do you really want a lot of money? Is that the ending goal of your life? Or you want to have a happy life? I think it's a personal choice. I always
Yeah.
feel you can achieve a lot in a short period of time. If you work really, really hard, which means it might be sacrifice your time to do any other things or your personal health or well-beings, but it's not sustainable. At least it's not sustainable for most people. It might be happening for some people, but for most people, it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
So you can see their short term Success. Yeah, they're very success. But that was maybe for many now like 10 years, 5 years, but are they really successful at the end of their life, right? It's a marathon. So you always want to look at the full picture to see what is you want to do, your choice, how you want to live your life. And then, you might also make adjustment. Sometimes when you're in your 20s, you make a choice different than what you're doing in your 30s. And your 40s, it's different again. So you make
Yeah.
adjustment, but I think the most important thing is that you have to understand you you have to understand yourself, and everybody is so different. If you the way you work, some people they are just good at working long hours and that's how they can produce results. Whereas other people, they might have short, they can only focus a short period of time, but they generate even better results within a short period of time. So you have to understand what is your style. I think the most time burnout and stress is because you're trying to make your body to do something if your body doesn't want it to do because you don't understand your body very well.
Yeah.
Yeah, you intervene the natural rhythm of your body, which, for example, you body will tell you it's time to sleep, but you tell yourself, no, I can't sleep because I have so many things I need to think about. So it's yourself telling yourself, okay, I need to do something that's against my nature. And that's why it's burnout. You get burnout, you got stress because you're forcing yourself to do something you're not naturally able to do. Whereas,
Yeah.
some people, their body are built different than us. They are able to do, long hours. Or when they're working, they might actually taking breaks in the middle, but you don't see that. You only see what they presented to you. You don't really see what's actually happening to them.
Mhm.
It's because of that. You think, oh, they work long hours, yeah, it's success. They work hard, they get success. No, it's not always the truth because you don't know the details. Yes, so I think it's
Yeah.
because, yeah, we all see, what's happening from the surface. And then we think that's what's going to happen, but that might not be.
I
Yeah,
like that. Yeah, it's really hard, and I think sometimes we hear these stories of people, but you don't see what their day to day was like. You don't see what they did to maybe avoid burnout as they built their careers, and so you can't make assumptions that I have to work 80 hours a week to be successful. A lot of times with everything that's happening and all the different advances in technology, we should be working smarter and finding ways to cut down the amount of hours that we need to work to still be successful.
exactly. And it's all about like if you know what you're good at, right? If you're good at
Hmm.
doing certain things, you focus on more than that, and then you'll be able to be more successful in that area, and you don't feel as tired because that's something you're more talented in. Whereas if you do something you are not good at, even working 1 hour a day might make you tired,
Yeah.
and that's
So,
why. Mm,
yeah, I feel like this has been an amazing conversation talking about burnout. And I think we've covered a lot of different things. And I kind of want to leave our listeners with, maybe somebody's been listening to this and they've identified, hey, I think I am burnt out or about to be burnt out. We can kind of end the conversation by like, what's one small step that they can start by like, kind of, I want to reclaim my energy. I want to reclaim my well being. I want to take a step in the right direction.
I think from okay, if you can go home and start to set alarm for yourself to take a break after 1 hour of working for 5 minutes. Okay, that's the first step you can do. It's a very small step. Just take a 5 minutes break every hour you work. I say small, but it takes a lot of energy or, management in order to do that. But I think it's very important. Just start to take a break during the day. I think that will be the best first step for you to start with this process.
Yeah, I like that. Well, Ting, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your expertise with our listeners today.
Thank you. Thank you. It's my honor to be here as well. And it's great chatting with you. And I'm so happy I can share all these experiences and advice to whoever listens here.
This has been Count Me In, IMA's podcast, providing you with the latest perspectives of thought leaders from the accounting and finance profession. If you like what you heard and you'd like to be counted in for more relevant accounting and finance education, visit IMA's website at www.imanet.org.